My name is Brad Laudeman. I'm with Missouri After School Network. And in case you haven't been on one of these with us for the last several months, um, we talked about this last week, but Stephanie Valdivia and I went to training, two different trainings, separate trainings, but I went to Atlanta last February, not 2020, but 2019. And then Stephanie went to Nashville in the spring sometime, maybe May, April, I don't remember, to get training for this partnership that's through our State Department of Education, DESE, as well as the CDC and the Alliance for a Healthier Generation, to provide some training around healthy eating and physical activity. So NAA created some standards and implemented those in 2011. So last week we went over all of those, kind of what those are and what they entail. We will post that recording, so if you missed it, you can get back in on that one at some point. So, so today we're going to talk about engaging families and communities in that healthy eating and physical activity in our programs. And so we know really that we don't just work for, or we don't work with just the students, right? Because if you work just with the student, there's all these other factors that we don't take into account. The community they live in, the homes they go to, the classrooms that they're in during the school day. And so what we're going to talk about today is the whole school, the whole community, and the whole child. I'm going to put this up here. So this is the model. It's called the WISC model. It's from the CDC. So they talk about the whole school, whole community, and whole child. And so basically what this is, it keeps the student at the center of what we do, because really that's where we focus, is on the kids in the middle. But it also pays attention to the community around them, the families, and trying to engage them. And so what the WISC model does really is centers the child, but then emphasizes the importance of the community and the family in developing healthy behaviors in those kids. So it doesn't really do us a lot of good to have a healthy cooking class in our program, and then the kids go home and they just eat Twinkies all the time. So if we can have a healthy cooking class, and then we send a recipe home with the child and instructions, something that, you know, obviously taking price into or cost into account, the ease of something to make, but the kids can go home and say, hey mom, I got this recipe, we did this in my after school program, could I make dinner? You know, so just planting seeds. And really that's what we're doing. The goal of these 3 sessions that we're doing last week, and then this is the second one, and then we'll have one next Tuesday as well. The goal really is just to put some seeds of thought in your mind about how you can develop some more healthy behaviors, or healthy eating and physical activity behaviors in your after school programs. We're not asking that you completely rearrange what you do. That's not what this is about. But really, if you could just change one thing that you do, you have one, maybe you add one physical activity that your kids are involved in on a regular basis. And then really it's about developing those habits so that they become healthy throughout their lifetime, and thinking about what that means. So, so this is the WISC model. What we're talking about today are the HEPA standards, kind of based on those. Let me flip those up there real quick. So these are the HEPA standards that were created by NAA, implemented in 2011. And really, we're just going to focus on this content area here on content area number 3 on social supports. And so this talks a lot about promoting healthy eating and physical activity, positive relationships among staff, children and youth, families, and the community. So there are 11 of these standards, or 11 components to this standard. And a lot of it just talks about how do we bring the community in and involve them in our program, and maybe some opportunities to teach healthy eating and physical activity, as well as how can we serve the community going outside of our programs. And then again, activities that, and Stephanie's going to kind of go through some of the details of how and what we can do in the program as well as at home, but giving the kids something that they can take home and they can exercise with their parents, or they can talk about healthy behaviors with their family. So the HEPA standards, that's not what I meant to do there. Let me throw this back up here. So if you would like to download these HEPA standards,
Oh, thank you.
they are, hopefully that thing's not in the way for you, naaweb.org, and we can put this in, I'll put this stuff in the chat box once Stephanie kind of takes over and starts talking about what she's going to do. But those are where those are at. So we're going to talk about ways to engage the family and the community today. Just little things like activities in your program. We talked, I mentioned healthy cooking lessons. So there was a program in Dixon. One of the teachers, actually, it was a school-based program. One of the teachers had gone to culinary school. So she would teach the kids how to cook. They would do the recipe, go through all of it right there in their program, and then she would send a piece of paper home with the kids that went over exactly what the ingredients were, what the process was, how do you make this thing that we made, and then she would send it home. So it's not a huge thing, but the kids loved it. They loved being able to cook, and then they could take it home, and the teacher would encourage them, go home and make this for your family. Offer to make dinner, because mom doesn't have to cook all the time. You can do this. You can help. So talking about program, in your program, family engagement activities. So for those of you who are grantees through DESE, you have a 21st century grant. A lot is put on family engagement, right? We understand that it's not just the kid. We want to get the family to come. So it's bringing the family into this process as well. And Stephanie's got some ideas on that she'll share. And then involving the community, like I said earlier, just on what can the program offer the community in the way of healthy eating and physical activity, but also who can you connect with, who can you partner with in your community to encourage that healthy eating and physical activity within your program. So that's just kind of a foundation, just kind of the base of where we're coming from today. Again, the expectation, these are guidelines. These are not requirements, the HEPA standards. They're ways for us to help kids develop healthy habits as they grow older. So again, not expecting you to change what you do completely in your program, change the focus of how you run it, but maybe just being more mindful. Again, it's a mindset more than it is do this, but it's being aware. Oh, here's a place where we could throw in some little physical activity, or we can have a healthy snack. We have an opportunity for this. So this is kind of the foundation of where we're starting from today. And then, so Stephanie's going to talk about how to do that, what maybe you might be able to do. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Steph.
Unmute. Hello again. Hey, so I'm Stephanie. I'm from Lakeway, Missouri. If you don't know where that's at, most people don't. We're down by Fort Leonard Wood. So we're between St. Louis and Joplin on I-44, pretty much directly in the middle. Super small district, 600 kiddos, pre-K through 12th grade. So we have to get really creative because we also live in a pretty farm area. A lot of my kids, bale hay in the summer and don't see them a whole lot and don't get a lot of that, and pretty low on that, income level as well. But I think this is a really cool platform for us because we get to talk about physical activity, healthy eating, and my big focus through this whole one today is that focus word for me is being intentional, and just having intentional, I can't change everything, but if I can be intentional about one thing, then I feel like I can make kind of progress. So I'm going to share my screen with you guys so that you can see our short little slide that we had put together. Then I pulled up what you had submitted, Laura, and I really liked it. So I would like to show that. Hang on, I have to go back to my screen and I can't see as well. I just can't. Okay, so we're going to go back to the beginning. and share with you guys. All right, so this is our second part of our Connect and Learn. Today is all about family and community engagement, and this is probably one of my favorite things to talk about. So we talk about family engagement and we talk about how difficult it is. And we know that when our families are engaged with our students, when our students are engaged with our families, our success rate is really high. But how do we encourage it? With both families and students. And I really liked, I know it's kind of blurry, but it says I thought about giving up, but then I remembered who was watching. And that's a big one for me when it comes to, reading or being physically active or eating well or drinking water. I sometimes don't want to participate or do that. It's easier just to do this. And then I remember that not only do I have my children, I have 2 boys, 5 and 7, but I'm under the eyes of all of the students at my school. And so I try to be mindful of that when I make certain choices. I want to be that positive role model for everybody else. So we're going to talk a little bit about family engagement when it comes to that. So why is family engagement so hard? This is in program and out of program. And I think a lot of it is we overcomplicate it, right? Like we overcomplicate family engagement. We make it so big. It has to be big. It has to be all of these things. And I think part of what we have to remember is it can be as simple as we want it to be. We don't have to make this complicated. And then the other thing that I think that why is this really hard is that we're so busy. We're busy all the time. We always have something going on. My sons play soccer. My sons are in wrestling. My sons play soccer. Then they play baseball. My husband is a law enforcement officer and he practices jujitsu. And I have we're so busy all the time. And we always make ourselves so busy that when we get home at the end of the day, we're exhausted and we don't want to do that anymore. We're tired. It's hard. It's busy. It's scary. Sorry, I totally hit the wrong button. So for me, I was like, man, what does physical activity look like outside of a PE class? Like, what can this look like for us? And really, it's any way to move your body, right? So yoga, walking, running, taking a bike ride with your kids. I don't have a working bike, so they bike and I walk. This is a big one for us in our house. We have a lot of dance parties. I will not send a recording of my own dance parties because, well, that's just kind of embarrassing. Nobody wants to see that. We talked about strength training and functional fitness, playing soccer, going outside and picking up trash, doing things where you can just get out. Brad and I had this conversation the other day. I think we forget about the importance of the sunlight and how good that is for our body. And so when we can give our families kind of some ideas and activities of ways to get out and be active with their kiddos, then we're able to kind of like plant that seed in their brain of like, hey, here's ideas of things that you can do. So snag this online, capturingjoy.com. It was pretty cool. So this is, again, what does physical activity look outside of a PE class? So this one says like mom runs while kids run, or bike ride alongside, family bike ride, a circuit workout in your house, in your driveway, hiking on a trail, practicing tennis, trampoline tricks, speed and skip, hopping backwards, obstacle courses, dance on the Wii, roller skating in the neighborhood or at a rink. If you don't have that, grab a skateboard, freeze tag. And this says, when you're frozen, jog in place, hopscotch, shoot hoops in the driveway, relay races. Really, it's just any way to kind of move your body. The other big component to this is finding ways to get community involvement. So if you're a 21st century grant, you have to have community partners. If a lot of times, most communities have some type of a health department. I know our health department here in the Waynesville, Lakeway, Fort Leonard Wood area, they are just a wealth of resources for us. So we partner with them for our Active Kids Running program, which we're actually, Melissa Martinez and I are writing this program to submit to 4-H to become a program for all 4-H department in the state of Missouri. They do like a couch to 5K if people were interested in doing that. They offer, water aerobics, and they offer yoga in the park classes. They're usually a wealth of knowledge of different organizations in your area or activities to get involved as a family. University extension offices, you may have one in your area. Ours is located inside of our health department, but we've tapped in with them quite a bit for, cooking classes. They've come in and they've given us some ideas about cooking. They've come in and done, I don't even remember what it was called, but she had a smoothie machine and it was attached to a bike. So you got to measure out your fruit and put it inside of the blender. But if the blender was going to work, you had to bike and you had to pedal it. And then if you pedaled it for so long, that would cause the blades to go, and then you would get your smoothie afterwards. So it was, you were doing your physical activity. You were also getting a healthy snack like a smoothie. Kids in the classroom, so they've done parfaits. They talk about, your food groups, and they talk about the importance of eating food, like healthy choices. And for us, it was really neat too, because they did it as a parent class. So we had our parents and we had our students involved. So it was kind of hitting the best of both worlds. If you're in a larger area, we unfortunately do not have these organizations, but Boys and Girls Club, YMCA, a lot of local church organizations will open up their doors. Usually they'll have things like pickup basketball or, dodgeball tournaments, or, the jogathon, or, jump rope, or any of these activities that get kids in their community. Well, if the kid wants to go to the activity, typically mom and dad have to take them if they can't just drive themselves, or if they don't ride the bus, or if they don't ride their bikes. If mom and dad drive them, 9 times out of 10, they're going to stay. Well, if they stay and they see that their kiddos are being active, sometimes that's kind of that good trigger. Oh, well, if they're doing this, then maybe I can walk the track, or I can do X, Y, and Z. And the last one for me is like a nonprofit organization. So I'm involved in a nonprofit organization, and we're really big into getting out into the community and becoming physically active. So we do things like community trash pickups, where we walk and we pick up trash. We'll do local 5Ks for people that enjoy running. We do like 1-mile walks. We do yoga in the park. We've even done, I know it's crazy, but we did one of those, I forget what they're called, but where like you're walking and then you stop and you do a little dance and then you keep walking. Even things like that, it moves your body, it gets you out into the community. So you find when you go into your community more and you give, you start to receive more, and it almost encourages you to become more active in what you're doing. So I think with like family engagement, we're platform over to the healthy eating portion. We make healthy eating so complicated, right? We go on these binges where we think we have to just like cut everything out and do all of these things. But Brad and I had this conversation too. It's very much just about being the mentality, right? Just putting these in your brain and just making, little changes that kind of snowball into something bigger and better. And this goes for your program. This goes for your personal life. This goes for everything. So, if you want to, drink 64 ounces of water, if that's something that I really want to do this because I think it's great, then make that one change. Make the change to, drink your 64 ounces of water every day. Or, hey, I eat candy every single day. Okay, well, rather than say, I'm not going to have any sweets forever, maybe we say, hey, we don't have candy on, we have one candy every other day versus one candy every single day. Then when we go every other day, we're like, okay, well, now we maybe do one candy a week. Then we make these small choices. I could say in my program specifically, my kids love when you bring them fresh fruit. I don't know about you guys, but for me, in my program, we will have, they'll have the apple slices that are brought to them from the school. The problem is they put like a preservative on them and they're slimy. And my kids think they're so gross. And so they don't like to eat it. Well, we have a local, like a store. It's a Mennonite store, and they always have extra produce. So one of my staff members goes down there quite a bit, and they will donate fresh grapes, apples, bananas, oranges to us. So we have noticed when we offer like a spring break program or a summer program, we'll have both. We'll have, apples and bananas, and we'll have, granola bars and Nutri-Grain bars. We almost always run out of the fresh fruit and almost never run out of the granola bars. Our students want the fresh fruit. They want the oranges. They want the bananas. They want the apples. They want all of these things. And I think to myself, like, man, totally never would have thought about that. You just make this assumption, but they like that. They think it's great. So even if we can do something like, maybe you can have a community garden where you can, raise your produce and maybe raise your, grow lettuce, and then they can cut their lettuce and make their own salads. And then you can teach them how to make salad dressing and then continue to grow the lettuce, and then they can take that home with them. So this way we're just putting in those little healthy habits with our students. So this was kind of this overarching for me, like this is our healthy living. For me, this is kind of my healthy living model. I try to think positive, and I try to always eat better. I'm a big believer in exercising, and I usually feel good after I do those 3 pieces. I think positive, I eat well, and I exercise often, and it usually leads me to living that really healthy life. Laura put this inside of our inside of the chat, and I really, really like it. I don't know if you guys snagged it, but if not, I would highly encourage going and doing it. This is the school reentry consideration from Shape Across America. But down here, if you go on the bottom and you scroll down, I'm on page, I don't even know what page I'm on, page 25. These are just different standards, right? So our physical education standards.
Stephanie, can you share that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You want me to share my screen?
Yeah. If you're on that site.
Oh, hold on. Let me snag it. Hang on. I have to find it, Brad, because I don't know where it's at. Hang on. Let me click it and then go back to it. Okay. So here, now let me share my screen again. Sorry, guys. Technical slowness right now. All right. So
there we go. Got it. Thanks.
You're welcome. It was reentry considerations, but I really like it. No, this isn't it. Hold on, let me go and share my other screen with you. Oops. Hold, please. Okay, got it. Okay, so page 25 of this one had all of these different activities. So we're talking about movement skills and patterns and concepts. But what I really like about it is over here, it gives you examples and activities, right? So space jamming, obstacle courses, movement to rhythm and beats, AKA dancing, sprinting, having, physical activities, so self-regulating, observation. So if we're running or we do a sprint, we can focus on that. But I really like this, Laura. Thank you so much for putting this on here, because I think this is a really good idea. And it's just something else that we don't always think about. It gives us really good ideas. So it's in the chat box if you guys haven't seen
Laura,
it.
Laura, if you want to repost that, just because it does, the chat box scrolls up. And so, Laura, if you could repost that in the chat box, that would be helpful. So for those of you who don't know, Laura Beckman is with DESE, and she has been our contact working with them through this process. Unfortunately, her computers, and I think it's a DESE thing, because when we work with people at DESE, they said they can't get on the Zoom calls. They have to call in on their phone. So she's going to work on being with us next week so you can hear from her. But so she just posted that in the chat box again. She said, she had told me just in a private chat, she said this came out like 15 minutes ago. It's hot off the press. So it is a great little resource just to kind of, like Stephanie said, with the activities, it's a great thing to have as a resource for yourself. So sorry, Steph, I didn't mean to step on you.
Oh, you're good. No, you're good. Okay, so I wrote a couple things down, and then I know Brad and I wanted to kind of put you guys into breakout rooms. just so that we want to know kind of what things you guys are working on as well in your programs. I think sharing is really, really great. I'm going to take everything that you guys give to us, and we want to basically make a living document. So I'm going to put it in a Google Drive, and then we're going to share it with everybody that's on these calls. And if you think of an idea, we want you to add to it, because I think that's great. One of the things we talked about was when we get together, and we had this idea of doing, hey, we're going to do morning mile. That's something my program wants to start doing. When our students come to the morning program, we're going to do a morning mile. We're going to have the kids walk, the laps, but we're going to give them a prompt. We're going to prompt them with some sort of question or something to start talking about it, because I think that's something we struggle with. And even for our family engagement nights, we talked about that too. When they come in and they get their student and they get ready to walk down to your family engagement night, give them a prompt. Give them something to talk about. Engagement doesn't have to be just physical. It's connection, any type of connection, right? We connect via Zoom right now because we can't connect in person. I know when I get home from work sometimes, I don't want to do anything. And then my kids are like this, mom, 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 mom. I can't even use the restroom. Like, go away. This is my time. But it's mom, mom, mom. And all they want to do is connect. And all I want to do is disconnect. So if we can engage them for a couple minutes. So if we take a walk after dinner, we have a conversation, we talk about whatever. And then this is my family, but we have these little cards, and we usually just grab one, and it's some kind of conversation starter. And we just start talking about whatever it is. And it usually leads into more conversations. And then my kids really seem to enjoy that as well. They learn something new. Typically I will learn something new. But we talked about that, like, give kids and parents a prompt, because sometimes they just need that, because we go in these day-to-day same thing all the time. So that was kind of it. Let's see, we said bike rides. We talked about sending the recipes home with instructions. So if you have a cooking class, if you can host one in your program, maybe each time they host a class, so if you host it, Mondays and Wednesdays, whatever recipe they're going to go from, see if you can get a copy of that recipe and then put it together. And maybe at the end of the quarter, you send it home with your student. So this way they're getting like a recipe book, and these are recipes that they've actually made, and then they can go home and make it for their families. So then they get to talk about, oh, this is what I made in my program. And they get to share that with their families too. Oh, thanks, Laura. So Laura posted Connect With Me cards with conversation prompts for the kiddos. So you guys are welcome to snag that as well, because I think that is wonderful. I really appreciate that, Laura, a lot. So Brad, that's all I've got right now.
All right, so we're gonna put you in breakout rooms, and really just your conversation is going to be about what do you do in your program around healthy eating and physical activity, or what's one change that you might be able to make. So like we've said it several times, it's been in the chat box as well, small steps. Because if you go, and like Stephanie was talking about, if I eat candy every day and all of a sudden I'm like, I'm never eating candy again, it can be done, but it's tough. But if you can make those small steps, okay, I'm not going to eat candy on Mondays. And then, okay, now Monday, I'm good on Mondays, Monday and Tuesday. Or I'm just going to walk for 5 minutes. And 5 minutes doesn't see you go, oh gosh, it's only 5 minutes. Okay, well, if you're not walking, just walk for 5 minutes. And do that for 2 weeks. And then after 2 weeks, you go, okay, I'm going to walk 10 minutes. And you build up to it. And that's really what we're trying to do with the kids, and involving the community, involving the family, is to help them develop these healthy habits. You do it small steps at a time. All right. So we're going to go to breakout rooms. And so again, like I said, your prompt is going to be, what are you doing in your program around healthy eating and physical activity? Things that your kids enjoy, things that your staff enjoy. That way the rest of us might be able to go, oh, I could do that. And then maybe what's one thing you can add, whether it's around the snacks and the healthy eating, or if it's physical activity.
Okay, so we asked you guys in your breakout rooms to talk about what you're doing right now and what is something that you could add to your program that you maybe aren't doing currently. So we had 13 breakout rooms. We're going to take about 4 people. But in the meantime, if one of your groups isn't called, I really encourage you to put it in the chat box. Sometimes it's great just to share. So breakout room number 4. Anybody that was in breakout room number 4 that has any ideas, things you're doing, something to add. Don't be shy. Nobody bites, except my dog who's barking at the wall.
I think I was 4 or 5.
All right.
We were talking about the different ways that we would either like to implement or what we're doing now. Like one thing we'd like to start implementing is the fresher foods and fruits from local sources. But then comes like a couple problems that came up was because of the whole COVID thing, how do we handle the food? Because I know that if we wash it before we serve it, and then we start using like gloves, if they rip, what will happen to the food then? Or sometimes we don't even notice it. We'll even touch our own face before we handle the food. So that's a concern. But currently right now, like what we were doing was we had the food prepped through the school. We'd be using their services. So the stuff's coming in through what school standards are. But the question comes down as we were talking about like those diet points that people are using, the weight loss ones. And even though it says 0 points, if you eat too much of it, is it still 0 points?
I really like your cheeseburger, number 1. I just keep laughing. And I mean it in the nicest way, Richard. I think it's wonderful. But I see Mark laughing and I'm like, I know he's chuckling. Like I know it. But no, you're right though. I never thought about it with COVID and all of this pandemic, how that affects us handling that fresh fruit and the fresh foods. I think that's definitely something that we can look at. But you're right. Even bringing in fresher fruit options. And a lot of the local businesses, if they have too much of something, they will donate to a school or a nonprofit. We have seen that a lot out here for, they give out free produce boxes on Wednesdays. Like anybody can go, 300 produce boxes, be here by 8 a.m. So you really got to get there at 7:30 because they have, 300 and then it's a line. But man, that's free produce that people get. But I usually go to the grocery store and I'm like, this is great. So I really like the idea of fresh. I think fresh is great if you can. Brad and I chatted a little bit about, the ability of being able to get fresh produce and how sometimes that's sometimes our kids' first interaction with fresh produce is just coming to school. And that's, something that we can offer. So thank you, Richard. I appreciate it. All right. Breakout room number 8. Anybody that was in breakout room number 8? 8 is great.
Or if you just want to say you were in breakout room number 8 because you want to talk, that's fine too.
Because I was in room 8 and I talked about in the past, my job has been food and fun. And so I'm a 21st century program. And so we did like this last year, I was doing multicultural and food and fun. So we would pick foods and we would pick activities and we would tie it all to different cultures, different countries, and intermix the different disciplines. So what's a game from, somewhere else? And the kids didn't know how the boomerang was made. And so we learned how to make boomerangs and throw boomerangs and then eat food that they would eat and different things like that. But the main thing that my kids picked up on the most was they really liked that fresh food. And being that we're in Louisiana, which is the middle of nowhere, we got a lot of farmers. And so we would reach out to the farmers and we would say, if you got extra stuff, bring it in. So we had tomatoes and cucumbers and all sorts of stuff. And Cassidy was saying that they accidentally got ears of corn that were still still not shucked. And her kids got to learn how to shuck the corn, and they had never done that before, and they really enjoyed it. So it's simple things like that that you take for granted being in your community, that when you reach out and, you know, bring them in, it doesn't make a difference how big or small you are. Like you said, sometimes this is the first time they've ever seen it, and my kids just absolutely loved cucumbers and couldn't get enough of them.
That's awesome. That's great. And I think too, I never thought about it from that farmer standpoint. You know, so like for local farmers and like seeing, like I think that's a really, really neat thing. Food and fun. I like that. It's like mixing geography, world geography, food. And sometimes we forget, you know, I mean, my family is Hispanic, so eating Mexican food is just, that's my culture. And so that's normal. Well, a lot of the kiddos here, you know, we talk about Mexican food and we talk about this, or they've never had Japanese food, or they've never had Hawaiian food, because the Hawaiians have their own culture.
Yeah, my brother lives in Hawaii, so I know all about Hawaiian food.
But it's great because you know what? A lot of them probably don't.
Yeah, they don't, and they don't get anything than what their parents are used to serving them.
Yeah, and I think that's really neat because you get to expose them to all of that too. That's really, really awesome. Okay, Sarah, I know you don't remember what room you're in, but would you like to speak about whatever your breakout room number talked about?
No, but thank you for asking.
Okay. And Sarah Harris had said, I don't ever remember my breakout room.
Sorry.
No, Sarah, that's great. There's a lot of Sarahs in here. Apparently not as many Stephanies, so that's okay too. Spam and eggs. Thank you, Mark.
It's the Hawaiian, you know, it's the state
Breakfast.
meat. Spam,
Yeah.
you know.
And furikake. You got to put furikake on it. All right, Sarah Harris, you're up.
Yes, ma'am. Actually, someone from my group actually had already touched on what we talked about a little bit in the chat. But just to reiterate, recipe books for the kids to take home. And some were doing cooking with the chef. And then also Fab 5 as far as physical activity for fitness, covering the 5 components of fitness.
That's awesome. And those are really cool things. I don't think we realize how fun it is to have a recipe book to take home too. We forget about that and we get to give it to them at the end of their stuff. And then breakout room 13. Anybody from 13?
13 was very small. So what if we got 12?
12. We can go 12. Breakout room number 12.
Arlene or Deborah.
Hi, Arlene here. Yeah, we talked about in our programs, Deborah and I are both from St. Louis. We are different with different entities of programming, but we both had the experience of the cooking class. And we have also had the activities for as the Fab 5, which is the 5 components, you know, of exercising, and we've Cooking Matters, and it was a wonderful program. We love it. The kids got a chance to really find out about different types of food and different vegetables. They tried them. We always had a thing where you didn't say ew until you tried it. And one thing we found that we didn't like about, well, it wasn't like, it's just a limitation for the age, was 8 years old and up. And the other children wanted so bad to be a part of it. So what I did, I used to take the recipes and copy for everybody in the program. So that way they could take it home and experience it, because I had a lot of families and had brothers and sisters. So everybody had a chance to take a recipe home and do it and have one for themselves.
That's awesome. That's great. I think those are super great ideas. I think it's great. And if you guys want to share them in the chat box, we're going to add this all to that living document, kind of put it together and make sure we share it with you guys. One thing that I kind of think is interesting, we always talk about that fresh and how we're so used, you know, for me, I have the ability to go and get fresh produce. And so I feel lucky that I'm able to do that. But a lot of our families maybe can't do fresh produce. So we said too, like you could buy a bag of broccoli for $1, you know, a steam bag, and you can take that bag of broccoli and then you can serve it to your family, and it's still kind of economical, but it's giving them some kind of, you know, good, healthy component. So finding ways to, I think if we were to share our knowledge about what we know about healthy eating and what we learn through all of our partnerships and the things we teach our kids, the more we share, the better. If we have the knowledge base, we might as well share it. The last thing we're going to do before we're done, I was telling Brad, my son and I did this together. So we always think of physical activity and we think of it having to be, if we're going to lift weights and we have to have dumbbells and we have to have all these things. Well, we did one, and my son, this is my backpack, so it's not his, but my son loaded it with like magnets, and he would put it on his back. And so we would say, okay, we're going to do 10 squats with your backpack. And so then he would squat 10 times with his backpack. And we're like, okay, Jared, now we're going to do, 10 push presses. So he would take his backpack and he would press it up over his head, 10 times. And then we would say, hey, we're going to do a deadlift. So we're going to pick it up from the ground. And we're going to stand all the way up with it. We found that by having him grab a backpack, something that he was comfortable with carrying, he carried it all the time. We all grabbed a backpack and we did that together. We decided like, hey, I asked my 5-year-old, he filled his with stuffed animals. My 7-year-old filled his with magnets. Obviously my 5-year-old was, lighter, but it was fun. They got to pick whatever they wanted to put inside of it, keep it lighter, make it fun. And we just picked different things. You can buy some activity dice and roll it. We've done Uno. So our after school program, we do Uno decks. So we'll do things like the yellow is jumping jacks, and the red is air squats, and the blue is mountain climbers, and the, the green is jog in place for a certain number of seconds. But the kids would start and everybody would get a card, and then they would run to the corners, complete the exercises, run back, and then they would get another card. And we would do that for 10 minutes. Man, by the end of the 10 minutes, those kids were like, their hearts were pumping and their body was going, but it was one of the best things we had. And that was great. We were able just to take a deck of Uno cards, and wild, we took all the wilds out. We're like, it's whatever. We took out all the specialties. We just used this deck of Uno cards, and they were able to go and play. And we did this with, we did it all the way down with kindergartners, all the way up to, 8th graders. We just kind of made it easier or harder. We added math. So 8th graders had to multiply everything by 2. So you got to multiply it by 2, and then you got to go do whatever the exercise and then come back. So just some more ideas. I definitely will share my ideas, and I really encourage you guys to share them with me too. But remember, we're just trying to change our mind and just give little tidbits of information so that we can make little impacts, because they just snowball into bigger and better, like movement is quality of life. And so that's really important to me. I'm Brad. It's incredibly important to Laura and our students. So thank you guys. I appreciate it a lot.
So if you take nothing else away from today, take away that it's small steps, and using things that you have around the house or in your program. Stephanie's little demonstration with lifting weights, right? It's a backpack, and kids have it in they have things in their backpack. So they just do those exercises with what they have. So as we go through this healthy eating and physical activity, it's not about going out and buying lots of exercise equipment. It doesn't even have to be a formalized, we're going to run a couch to 5K, right? It could just be, we'll call it a morning mile, but we're going to walk for 15 minutes. And however far you get in 15 minutes is how far you get, right? So it's the mentality. It's the idea, that mindset of, we're going to help the kids develop these healthy habits. At the same time, the staff is developing those. So we're modeling what that means. So if we're going to ask the kids to walk for 15 minutes, guess what we're doing? Walking for 15 minutes, right? It's a great way to connect with your kids. You walk with one kid for 3 minutes, and then you drop back and you catch another one, and you talk to him for 5 minutes, and then you go catch another one and you talk to her for 5 minutes. So little steps. is what we're looking for. And really, it's just about developing healthy habits for life. So we will we'll get your email addresses to Stephanie. We'll get that Google Drive or get that Google link to you for that document so you can post ideas. Please do post in it. We would like for it to be a living document. Don't just go there and go, oh, that's a great idea, and then walk away with it. Contribute as well. Yes, go and take those ideas, but go there and add, what are you doing in your program? How are you implementing these HEPA standards in your program? All right. Any questions? Let me scroll through here. I think there's just lots of conversation, which is great. Yeah. Frozen water bottles for dumbbells. Yeah. So, all right. Anything else, Stephanie? You good?
I'm good.
Thank you so much for joining us today.